Welcome back to Open Line. Glad you're with us tonight. We are talking with a professor of business strategy, Mark Cohen from Vanderbilt University. Dr. Cohen is joining us via Zoom, as our guests do, talking about kind of the new political stance that some businesses are taking. We saw it after the when they said they weren't going to make political contributions to some Republicans who wanted to overturn the election results, and that's just kind of the entry into this issue. And so some calls here. Let's go to Michael, then I'm going to go to Lucy. Promise Lucy, but let's first go to Michael. Michael, go right ahead. Michael, are you there?
Yes.
Go right ahead, Michael.
Why are people attacked for citing for all lives matter instead of Black Lives Matter? This is absurdly stupid, in my opinion. It makes no sense. I'll stay on.
Okay, what makes no sense? Okay, are you talking about Black Lives Matter, or are you talking about
Why is it focused on Black Lives Matter instead of all lives matter?
Okay, well, I appreciate. You're not the first person to ask that question. I don't think this show gets at that question, but that's a question some people have, and it speaks to the division that's out there, and the way people see things can be in all kinds of different perspectives. I'm just going to go to Lucy. Lucy, go right ahead.
Y'all.
Hey.
Well, I've got a couple of comments and then a question at the end, so I'll try to be quick. I'm of the age that I remember back in the 60s that if you had long hair and you wore sandals and you were a guy with a beard here in the South when everybody else was crew cut, clean cut, no beard, all that stuff, and wore, shoes or boots, you could not be served in a restaurant. And they started putting up signs like we were having an invasion here in the South in particular that said no shoes, no shirt, no service. And I had friends that looked like that, and we knew to not even bother going in the door, even though you had a shirt on and shoes. It was a whole thing of being harassed. And the whole argument came out that was up to that business owner's preference, that he had the absolute right to refuse you service. In Murfreesboro, Tennessee, they got so angry with the college students looking like hippies that they refused them service, and the college students boycotted downtown Murfreesboro, and they changed their mind. Clarksville, Tennessee, in the 60s, they got tired of the shenanigans with the Army personnel, and they started telling them how to do stuff, and the commander of the base made them all stay on the base, and almost bankrupted the city of Clarksville. So businesses have always reserved that right, but when you get up to a corporate level like this, from when I remember, Parler is owned by Robert Mercer, who is a huge, or his daughter, a huge hedge fund manager. He's got enough money to go out and start his own whatever. He's already started this platform, so there's no problem there. He's just not spending the money on it. He uses Amazon or whoever hosted his Parler site to get his messages across that benefits his hedge fund. And the same thing with broadcast, corporate radio like Clear Channel. They've all become monopolized, and to the point that locals and local little people can't get their news out. So here's my question. Let's see if I understand this wrong. Under the Citizens United that was decided by the Supreme Court, I think, back in 2007, what we're looking at are not corporations, companies, because I thought they had decided that corporations have people in them, and therefore they're people, and they have their own civil rights. And that was when a shift started. So that's what I understand. They can do whatever they feel like doing now. Thank you.
Yeah, we heard, wasn't it Mitt Romney who said corporations are people or something to that effect? But that was the ruling. What about that ruling? Interesting question there from Lucy.
Yeah, let me address, a really good comment and make a few points in response. And within certain bounds, like, companies are free to decide who they want to do business with. Now, that's not true where we have laws against discrimination in credit markets, in housing markets, in employment markets, because we've had historical discrimination, and Congress has passed laws that says you cannot discriminate. On the other hand, as Lucy suggests, I mean, if a company wants to say, you can't come in here with bare feet, or in today's world, you can't come in here without a mask, even if the law doesn't require it, the company's free to do that. Okay, so aside from anti-discrimination laws for certain reasons, it's free. It's a free market, and I think like I was saying before, you're going to have some companies that say, that's fine, but I want the hippies, I want the barefoot people, and I'm going to make a business just on that. And I think that's sort of the beauty of a free market, as long as we don't have, the discrimination and other concerns that we, as I was talking about. So I think she makes a really good point, and businesses largely are free to do these kinds of things. I want to make another point, and this comes back a little bit to Michael's comment, and I don't want to get into the political debate about all lives matter versus Black Lives Matter. There's clearly a reason why Black Lives Matter is different, and I don't want to get into that political debate, and it has to do with historical discrimination and racial injustice. But aside from that, here's the difficulty. I was reading a recent survey of the public, and it was something like 59% of Democrats said that they want a company's stance on social issues. It's important to them when it comes to buying a service or product. 59%. Now, it doesn't mean all of them will change who they do business with, but it's important to them. What about Republicans? 55%. So we have a majority of both Democrats and Republicans saying that they care about the political stance that companies they're doing business with take. But of course, in such a polarized world, that means that there's room for both sides, doesn't it? That means that some businesses are going to want to move in one direction, and some businesses are going to want to move in another direction. I mean, you've got Hobby Lobby, you've got Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A doesn't open on Sunday. Hobby Lobby refuses to pay for birth control for their employees. Those are illegally allowed. Does it mean that those two companies go out of business? No, there's a lot of people who disagree with them politically, but and they have alternatives to go to. So anyway, that addresses some of the questions.
And that's fascinating. And if we get into, there's a debate, right? And I understand this from you. There's a debate about the classic role of business. I mean, is it to maximize profit, or is it to have some sort of positive impact on society and the world? And I guess there's a give and take on that sort of debate. But do you see that both sides on that debate? Is there an argument for both sides? I mean, I guess I would have thought classic role is maximize profits, period.
Well, there is a classic debate, and let me just start real quick in saying that mostly what we've been talking about are large companies that are publicly traded. We have shareholders. Let's not forget there's a whole segment of companies that are small businesses, and it may be privately held companies. It may be that they run their business because of their social values. They run, and look, Ben & Jerry's started with that. I mean, you have lots of companies. I mean, again, the Hobby Lobby. So I think we have to distinguish that. But when we talk about large corporations, there is this debate. I mean, what's the role? And there's this classic debate from the famous Milton Friedman economist, and who basically said the role of business is to maximize shareholder value or profits. And then you have this debate, and it started much earlier, but there's a classic debate between him and John Mackey, who was the founder of Whole Foods. And he said, no, the role of a corporation should be to maximize the value for all these stakeholders. And that includes your employees, it includes your customers, it includes shareholders, but it includes others as well, suppliers and society and the environment. And that's a debate we still have. I mean, I think some people like to think, and this is where sometimes they can come together, is that in this day and age, and I think there's a growing awareness that in this day and age, when you do provide value for all of your stakeholders, all of these, not just your shareholders, that in the long run that is beneficial to your share value. But that's not always the case. So anyways, we can go into this in more detail in one of my classes, but that's the kind of thing that I think we continue to debate in society. But I do think there is this, you started this whole show and asking have things changed. One of the things that's important is I think that the role of business has changed, and partly we all see this partly in the generation. When I gave you those statistics, those are dramatic statistics. I don't think we would have seen that 10 or 15 years ago. The younger generation cares a lot about it. I mean, I've been teaching for a long time to MBA students, over 30 years. And my students today are much different than they were 10 years ago. And these are students who are business students. They're going to be in the business world, and they care about who they work for. They care about the company's values, political values, social values, and they care about it as customers. And I think, so we as consumers care, therefore businesses will be caring more and more.
That is a very interesting thing, and that's fascinating to see that change over the time that you've been teaching. All right, we're going to take a break. I want to come back. I'm going to ask you about Warren Buffett when we come back. So we'll take a break. Be back right after this.